Welcome to the best gambling show on the internet. This is the home of the money pick. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Week 1 early Vegas spread picks. And listen, it is June 6th. It is early for the Vegas spread picks, but we need to be analyzing these teams. And last year we did quite well with the early picks. So on some of these, I'm not going to have the strongest conviction in the world, obviously. But let's get to the picks. Let's get to this money. Great to see you guys again at home. I've crawled out of my cave. Let's get it. First game, Thursday Night Football, opening day. We got the Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. Ravens are +3. I think the Ravens win in the cover here. And listen, I like what the Chiefs did with Marquise Brown this offseason. I think giving Mahomes a deep threat was just drastically needed, and that was something I was happy about. But I am worried about the Chiefs. There is Shea Rice, Travis Kelce's age, no Joyner in the secondary. I am worried about the Chiefs, and I do think they start slow. Also, I am worried about the Ravens. They completely dismantled that offensive line. I think they're going to have 3 or 4 new starters. Don't quote me. I could be wrong, but I am worried about that offensive line. We know that's what makes the Ravens go. But I do think the Ravens play better defense, and I do think Lamar Jackson will be on target this game. I think the Ravens upset them. I love it with the +3. I don't like fading the Chiefs. I honestly don't even like betting games they're involved in. But give me the Ravens winning the cover, upset on the road. Next game, we're going to Brazil. We got the Green Bay Packers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Game is in Sao Paulo. Eagles are -1.5. Money, money, money. Okay, it is a little bit early for a money pick, but I'm looking to get against the Packers. And the 9.5 win total, I'm thinking about touching that on the under. But I am getting against the Packers. And listen, I think there's a lot to be excited about. Jordan Love's last 6-7 games of the year last year was absolutely phenomenal. I'm not trying to poke holes in that body of work, but I think we should look at the full sheet instead of 1/3 of the sheet, if you understand what I'm saying. And I also think this Eagles team isn't going to go down without a fight. Like, I think they had a Super Bowl loser slump last year. That's something that's common in this league. I'm not coping. I'm not making excuses. It's just a reality of how this league operates. And I think the Eagles do come back strong. And I think a big factor in the Eagles' downfall, obviously that defense was ass last year, new defensive coordinator coming in, but I think the big part of that downfall last year was Jalen Hurts' knee injury and also the offensive play calling. You get Kellen Moore in, you get a healthy Hurts, and the Eagles still have one of the most powerful, packed offenses. Give me the Eagles winning the cover. I'm thinking about going to the game. It's just week 1 is a working week for us. It's the most important week. We've never had a losing week 1 on Patreon, on YouTube. So I don't know if I'll be going. The game's on Friday night. Next game, we're going to South Florida. We got the Jacksonville Jags at the Miami Dolphins. Jags +3.5. This one is tough. As of right now, I'm going Jags to cover, Dolphins to win, no science. But I do want to say some things about both of these teams. I think people are really low on the Jags, and I get it. We hit a few college fund bets against them last year, which was really fun and really lucrative for the boys on Patreon. But I'm not doubting the Jags. Like, I'm not throwing them out. I'm not throwing Trevor Lawrence out like a lot of people want to do. I am worried about the Dolphins' offensive line, guys. I just am. I am a little bit worried about how skinny Tua looks. He looks like he's about 155 at a certain point. And I am worried about some things I'm seeing on the Dolphins. Like the Christian Wilkins loss was one of the biggest losses in free agency out of any team in this fucking league. It's just a reality. And I know defensive tackle's not sexy. I know Christian Wilkins isn't going to get like ESPN typing, but it is a big factor in games. As of right now, Jags to cover, Phins to win. I mean, Phins were a gravy train last year, but I am worried about it. I am seeing some worrying signs, and that defense just needs to play better, guys. Next game, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons minus 2.5. Falcons winning the cover. Like, there's a lot of FUD surrounding the Falcons. And I like what the Steelers did this offseason. I absolutely loved it. I'll get to them later. But you add Kirk Cousins with Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London. Drake London's one of the most underrated players in this league. Like, I don't care. You can just take your stats and shove them up your ass. Like, at a certain point, if Desmond Ridder is throwing you the football, there isn't any sort of stats that are quantifiable to show just how bad and how bad a working situation that is. Like, I do think the Falcons get a boost to Raheem Morris. Did I love the hire? No. Did I like the Michael Penix Jr. draft pick? No. Like, I get it. I get why there's fun. I get why there's negativity surrounding them. But at a certain point, I do think this Falcons defense gets a little bit of a new coach bounce. And I do think this offense is a top 10 offense in the league. And when you look at the Steelers, I think the Steelers could be strong this year. But we have to look and read the tea leaves. Firstly, I think the Steelers are going to use the special teams, the new kickoff rule, better than anyone else in this league. Firstly, I'm going to put that out there. I'll bet money on that. I'll put the chips in the table for that. The Cordero Patterson signing really just summarizes my feelings on that. But secondly, I don't think they have the gumption to start Justin Fields week 1. And I think that's a necessary, that's a non-binary view for me. If Russell Wilson's starting, I'm fading. I'm going against. Give me the Falcons. Next game, we got my Minnesota Vikings. Jefferson at the New York Giants. Vikings +1. Man, I'm worried about J.J. McCarthy, man, and you guys can leave a comment. I do want your opinion. I did watch him 3 times in college. I think a big reason why we have such great starts to gambling every year is I don't listen to FUD like us. We pretty much anointed C.J. Stroud week 2 last year as a very good quarterback. Not a lot of people did that because of FUD. People were saying during the draft and offseason, so I don't fall for the FUD. But I am a little bit worried about J.J. McCarthy. I don't know if he fits with this O'Connell offense. I don't know if he has the arm to do what needs to be done. And you look at the Giants. I do think the Giants have a little bit of a bounce-back year. I'm going Vikings here, but I am worried about the Vikings. Like, you lose Danielle Hunter, and yeah, you get Greenyard, who's younger, but come on, who's better, Hunter or Greenyard? Like, we know fucking Danielle Hunter's better. This one's tough. I'm going Vikings, no science. I do think the Giants will be better. Like, if you look at this defense, especially some of the young players, like, I do see some optimism, but there's always Daniel Jones there, but at least you have Dayball if you're a Giants fan. Next game, we got the Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Panthers +4.5. New Orleans. Okay, here we go. I'm looking at the Panthers situation right now, and I don't think they have the worst roster in the NFL anymore. That goes to the Patriots or that goes to the Broncos. I feel like the Dave Canales hire was one of the few inspired head coaching hires of this offseason. I'm not a Bryce Young guy. I said he was a bust very early last year. I'm not budging. I'm not changing my opinion. But I do think the Saints team is a team in disarray. I think the Panthers cover here. I think the Saints win. Like, I'm watching card tape. I was watching card tape 3 weeks ago. Like, this man is afraid to get hit. Like, the Saints had so many big plays down the field last year, And he just doesn't want to stay in that extra half second where he will take contact, but will also result in a big play. So we should see him checking it down to Kamara. And I do think the Saints team is aging. I don't think they've done enough to rejuvenate, and I've been saying that for 3 or 4 years. I think the Panthers cover, Saints win. If the Panthers can put up a decent performance on offense, they can steal this on the road. Next game, we got the New England Patriots at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals minus 9.5. Get on Patreon, $5 a month. We were great last year. We made a ton of money. Get on there again. Link in the description. I think Bengals winning the cover. The reason why I don't think this will be a money pick week 1, because I always worry about how the Bengals start seasons. Let's just be realistic about it. They haven't been great. But I do think the Patriots are the worst team in the league. Like, I think they're the worst team in the league by some distance. And I don't think that's me just burying Jared Mayo. Nothing against the man. But I'm worried about Drake May, man. I think he's going to struggle big time in this league. I think there's going to be some rude awakenings for him rather quickly. Give me the Bengals to win in the cover. 9.5 is an awful lot for a week 1 affair, but I think the Bengals are a much better team. I think they're like 21 points better if the Bengals are playing correctly. Next game, we got the Tennessee Titans at the Chicago Bears. The Bears, Titans plus 4.5. I like the Titans to cover here. I think this is a field goal game. Now, we talked about an inspiring hire in Canales with the Panthers. One of the least inspiring hires was Brian Callahan with the Titans. Let's just be realistic. Like, Zach Taylor called the plays for the Bengals. He did very little. A little bit of nepotism here. His father's Bill Callahan, old coach of the Raiders, longtime offensive line coach in this league. But I do think the Titans can keep this close. And I do want to throw a little bit of cold water on some of the Caleb Williams stuff. Like I said, I don't listen to the offseason hype. I don't listen to the college guys hyping or trashing up quarterbacks. We have to watch them in preseason. We have to watch them closely early in the season. But I just don't think Caleb Williams is going to come in destroying this league, whipping work like a lot of people are saying. I just don't see it. I think this is a close game. I love the Titans wide receiving core. Defense has been dismantled, but they can't be worse than last year, right? That defense was terrible, especially in the secondary. Can Caleb Williams exploit that? Can Will Levis be better? I think Will Levis is decent, although I wouldn't want him as my quarterback. I don't know if you guys saw that video. Titans to cover, Bears to win. Next game, we got the Arizona Cardinals, pew pew, at the Buffalo Bills. Cards plus 7. Cards cover, Bills win. I'm getting against the Bills this year. I was against them last year, and yes, they had that late run that was miraculous where they figured it out, where they're able to run the ball at a very high level, which saved the season. But I'm getting against them, and I'm not liking this wide receiving core, and I think the Keon Coleman draft pick was troublesome for me. It was problematic. The Stephon Diggs trade we all kind of saw coming, but there's no one in there to replace him, and I have Bills fans coping in my Instagram inbox saying Shakur is going to be an X on the outside, and I'm just not seeing it. They have a bunch of receivers that do the same thing, everything underneath, everything in the slot, and at a certain point you need a little bit of variety and diversity for a quarterback. So it makes me think like the Bills are going to be running the ball a lot this year. Did the Cardinals get drastically better? No. But I do think Kyler Murray from the start of the season with Marvin Harrison Jr. will have some sort of impact. I also think we need to give Jonathan Gannon, we made a lot of jokes about him last year, the pew, pew, pew thing. Listen, the jokes were funny, but after taking a deep breath and analyzing his coaching during the season, I feel like Jonathan Gannon's a good fucking coach, man. Ralph Wilson Stadium, week 1, is an extremely hard place to go, but give me the Cards to cover, Bills to win. Next game, we got the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Texans minus 1.5. The Texans were a gravy train for us last year. And I think there'll be a gravy train again. I just don't know if we're going to get the same value with the spreads we got last year. But when I look at the Colts, they're a team I'm going to get against. And it's nothing against Shane Steichen. It's more of a praise of Shane Steichen. I felt like Shane Steichen won games last year alone. Just with his schemes, with his play calling, with the inspiration he provided for the team. But I feel like this Colts team just isn't talented enough. And I don't know how long Anthony Richardson's going to last. Whenever Anthony Richardson's in the game at quarterback, it's a wild card. I just don't see it lasting more than 5, 6, 7 games. Like, I'm just going to be realistic. And I'm not even like a guy to wish injuries on anyone, or I just don't think he's going to last long. I do think this is going to be a close game. But I think the Texans' improvements defensively are more astounding than the Stephon Diggs addition. Like, I didn't like the Joe Mixon addition, but I feel like the stuff the Texans did defensively, adding Danielle Hunter, adding interior defensive linemen, I feel like the secondary got better, and I feel like the young players like Stingley are going to emerge. I love the Texans. I think they're a real contender. Texans winning the cover, and we started this Stroud bandwagon. I don't see this bandwagon stopping anytime soon. Like, I do think it's going to be a little bit rocky. I don't think it's going to be a linear lineup like it was last year. I mean, it's just an ascendant rise, but I think Stroud's going to be very good the full 17 games, and I think that's going to make a big fucking difference. Give me the Texans to win in the cover. Next game, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers minus 3.5, no science. No science. Raiders cover. Chargers win. I mean, I am making this video go a lot longer than I wanted to because I have a lot to say about these teams. I do think the Chargers get a new coach bounce. I wish the Raiders had some sort of better answer at quarterback so we can use them. I'm going Raiders to cover, Chargers to win, not a lot of science. Next game, we got the Denver Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks. Hawks minus 4.5. I like the Mike McDonald hire. I had to sleep on it a little bit, but this Seahawks defense, it's just, man, they underperformed and underachieved last year. It just simply wasn't good enough. Let's be honest about it. And I think the talent is better than what they showed on the field. And I know there's like a lot of coping going on right now. Like Sean Payton's doing it, saying like Knicks has the highest throwing percentage in NCAA history. And I know Broncos fans want to believe, but this Broncos roster's decimated, whether it be offensively, whether it be defensively. Courtland Sutton doesn't want to play for him anymore. And I think the Hawks come in and absolutely slam the Broncos in week 1. Like, I am worried about the Broncos this year, even when you have an elite schemer like Sean Payton. I just don't know. I just don't think it's like kind of like taking milk from a rock. I mean, I just don't see how you're going to do it. Next game, we got the Dallas Cowboys, them boys, at the Cleveland Browns. Browns plus 1.5. Browns to win in the cover. It probably will be a money pick. I do think a lot of the fun about Dallas is a little bit over-exaggerated. Like, I do think we live in a 24-hour social media cycle where if Jerry Jones doesn't sign free agents, everyone gets antsy and somehow thinks the team sucks and Dak Prescott sucks. Like, I'm not going that far, but I do think there's serious holes in this Cowboys team. And one criticism I will put forth of their offseason was this offensive line is aging. This offensive line, I don't think it's good enough. It's not up to the snub that the Cowboys have had the last 6, 7 years that have made them very competitive. And when you have a struggling offensive line or a new offensive line trying to blend in, get work together, I think the Browns are a bad matchup, especially on the Browns' home turf. I don't know if this Browns offense will be good enough. I don't know if Deshaun Watson will peak, but I think the Browns defense will win this game. Give me the Browns. Next game, we got the Washington No-Names Commanders, whatever you want to call them, at the Tampa Bay Bucs. Commanders +4. I think Commanders can win this game. I do. I think there's going to be a little bit of a Bucs fall off this year. I think there's going to be a little bit of a Baker Mayfield fall off this year. Bucs have a very consistent defense. Commanders had a different strategy this offseason. They had a lot of veterans. I mean, none of them are sexy. But I do think Jaden Daniels can have some sort of impact. Like, I do think his throwing needs a lot of work, but I think he could run for 100 yards. I really do. I think he's that type of athlete in this league. There is no science. I'm just getting kind of against the Bucs this year. I do think they fall off a little bit. Next game, we got the Los Angeles Rams at the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell. Lions -3.5. Do not bet this. Like, if you bet this, you're a degenerate. And the Lions have made us so much money the last 2.5 years. You almost want to just keep pressing button. Keep pressing button. You know, like when they put the mice in the cage and they train them, like, you know, if you push the button, you get like a little shot of dopamine, a little shot of like cocaine in your brain. And like you push the button and you'll see the mice or rat keep pushing the button. Like, I get it. The Lions have been rewarding for us, but I'm just staying away from this. I don't like the hook. I do think the Rams got a lot better this year. I do think the Rams are going to be strong. I just think this one, like, we should just live to bet another day. I am interested about the Rams this year. I do think they're an interesting team. I'm just staying away from this one. This one should be the one that no one should touch. Next game, Monday Night Football. We got the New York Jets at the San Francisco 49ers. Jets +5.5. And man, I want to go Jets to cover. Fundamentals say Jets cover here. I do like what the Jets did to strengthen this offensive line. I do. But will they be in sync, fluid, ready to roll week 1? I don't know. I'm going 49ers to win in the cover here. But I'm very high on the Jets this year. I think they have the best defense in the league. I think you add Javon Kinlaw to that defensive line. Everyone said the Jets were going to, like, lose all their good defensive players. I didn't see that happen. Like, I think this defense is the best in the league, and I don't think there's going to be a fall-off. I am a little worried about the Niners going to this year. You got the Ayuk situation. You got Deebo Samuel. You have a team that is disappointed. You have Trent Williams 1 year older. Like, there are a lot of issues, and I was one thing that astounded me. Remember when we hit that college fun bet? 49ers against the Jags on Patreon, and we even had it on YouTube as a money pick. Remember how dominant their defensive line was? And it just felt like as the season went on, the defensive line was less and less dominant every week, and they blamed Steve Wilkes. But I think it's more than that. I think this team needs a little bit of rejuvenation. It needs a little bit of freshness. I am staying away from this one. The fundamentals say get the Jets to cover. I just want to make sure that Jets offensive line is in fluid mode before we touch that. Aaron Rodgers, a lot of people are putting him as 14th or 15th best quarterback in the league. I don't know. I'm not going. I think Aaron Rodgers is still a top 10 quarterback. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. The best gambling show on the internet. Slam that like button. I missed you guys. Thank you for all the wishes. My wife is doing better. 3 months in the hospital, but she's doing better now. Thank you for all the wishes. I appreciate you guys. Get on Patreon once the season starts. Let's get this money. Slam the like button. Share the damn video.